This Week with Bob Mueller on News 2.
This week, Johnson & Johnson begins shipping its single-shot COVID-19 vaccine to clinics, pharmacies, and health departments across the country. The single-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine is heading to Tennessee, but can the state handle more vaccine as it investigates the waste of thousands of doses? More in our This Week cover story. The president with a stunning announcement that could mean all adults in America will be vaccinated before summer and a year later. A look back at damage and recovery from the March 2020 Tennessee tornado. Hello again and welcome to another edition of This Week. As a third COVID-19 vaccine begins arriving in Tennessee, controversy remains over the wasting of vaccine in several areas of the state. More in our This Week cover story. But first, a look at the other political headlines of the week. Controversy on Tennessee's Capitol Hill as Republicans in the state Senate approve a transgender sports ban, primarily aimed at born male, trans to female transgender athletes. The bill is sponsored by GOP Senator Joey Hensley of Hohenwald. When told there has never been an instance of a born male to female trying to compete in girls' sports in Tennessee, Hensley and other Senate Republicans said they are preparing for what is to come. Democrats say this will invite litigation and could cost Tennessee billions of dollars in federal support. The ACLU has already threatened to sue. State Capitol newsroom reporter Gerald Harris has more.
Tennessee Senate Republicans have made it clear
that every member casts their vote when the bell rings.
It is a problem. It's a problem in America today. Now, you can be on one side of the issue or you can be on the other side of the issue, but it is a problem that is emerging with a great deal of speed.
Lawmakers passing a bill to ban transgender athletes from playing sports that don't align with their assigned sex.
Ayes 27, 6 days.
The vote is now intensifying the ACLU and other pro-LGBTQ groups' push to stop the bill in its track.
These bills can't be justified using the arguments that proponents have put forward. The only thing that could justify putting forward bills like this is discrimination against the LGBTQ community, specifically trans people, specifically children.
Republicans argue transgender girls will be stronger and faster. The ACLU says that's not the case.
We have 10 expert declarations dealing with this issue in Idaho, and the court found that there was no basis for the suggestion that trans women and girls have some sort of unfair advantage and that legislation of this kind is necessary.
Advocates say the state could face an economic backlash if the trans ban bill becomes law.
Competition among cities and states for tourism business is feverish, and our communities cannot afford a mark against them when they're bidding for events because of the headlines the state makes on anti-LGBT discrimination.
The bill will head to the Tennessee State House for consideration. Reporting in Nashville, Gerald Harris, News 2.
Mayor John Cooper says Nashville's housing needs are urgent, and he has created a task force on affordable housing. News 2's Erica Francis shows us what's already being done and walks us through affordable housing already on the market.
It's a life staple, something we all deserve. You see, they're being built, but Eddie Latimer, CEO of Affordable Housing Resources, admits we need more.
The problem is there are not enough resources.
It's why Mayor John Cooper created an affordable housing task force.
What we're trying to do is just create models so that you can get a home that's with a decent mortgage, like $1,000, $1,100.
Building these 4 micro homes in Wedgwood, Houston.
These 4 homes were designed by Auburn University's Rural Studio, and with the intent of figuring out how to build an affordable home and keep the energy, make it very sustainable so that the electric costs were very low.
Building 2 3-bedroom homes with 4 more being completed this month.
If you can qualify for $190,000 first mortgage, then we can get you in one of these homes.
It comes as more and more homeowners and renters become cost-burdened, moving further and further away.
If we don't address this, we're going to drive them further and further out.
In the last 10 years, Zillow says typical home values in Nashville have nearly doubled. Just 5 years ago, home values set at $208,000. Now we're at $304,000. The cost of materials not helping.
We believe in what we're doing. We want to try to do affordable housing for the city, that Nashville, our community, and So we're committed to it, but it is very difficult.
Everybody's going to have a will, a resolve to create this, because it's not going to happen on its own.
Where there's a will, there's always a way. Erica Francis, News 2.
Nashville Mayor John Cooper had been in office less than 6 months when the March 3rd, 2020 tornado hit. The mayor marshaled emergency responders, toured the damage, and sought emergency funds immediately. Now, a year later, I spoke with Mayor Cooper about that night, how far recovery has come, and what lies ahead. It hit in the middle of the night, the worst time possible.
1 o'clock in the morning, there was terrible noise.
It was a deadly storm, claiming 25 lives, including 2 Nashvillians.
I thought an airplane had crashed.
And it was a destructive storm, causing $1.6 billion in damage.
And just to see it was just kind of surreal.
The recovery has been long and continues.
We have tried very hard.
For Nashville Mayor John Cooper, the March 3rd tornado would be the first of a series of natural, economic, and social disasters. But at the time, it was the most pressing.
I do think at this point the human problem from the tornado has been addressed. If not, people find me on Hub Nashville and let me know.
The recovery began quickly, thanks to the people of Nashville.
So many people delivered meals, picked up debris, brought plastic tarps to cover up houses. It was an act of so many individual human kindnesses that can't really be counted, but that's the measure of a great city.
Acts of kindness that were repeated and repeated.
And weren't even asked. You know, how many alleys did I see get cleared just by people showing up who owned a chainsaw and a pickup truck and they knew people needed help.
There was criticism from some tornado victims who felt they were forgotten only days after the storm when the coronavirus pandemic hit Tennessee. Mayor Cooper does not believe that is true.
What happened with COVID is we happened to come across a whole lot of other people that needed to be served too, but we got it all done for everybody as best we can in a functioning city.
Rebuilding happened in the middle of a pandemic. Mayor Cooper says with vaccines now available, change is coming.
I think once people begin to get out and really connect in person for the first time in the coming months, you're going to detect an energy and a pride that has been earned.
Mayor Cooper looks at 2021 as the year of Nashville's rebirth.
We've parked it for the last year. We're ready to go. And we've got a lot of businesses that need help, but we've got just a lot of energy that's right under the surface. I think you can feel it. We're going to have an incredible decade.
Now to our This Week cover story. New vaccine options for Tennessee after several thousand doses were spoiled. Shelby County reports losing more than 2,400 doses. Rutherford County, nearly 1,000 doses. Tennessee Capitol Hill newsroom reporter Gerald Harris takes a look at whether the state can handle additional doses of COVID-19 vaccines while an investigation continues.
The more options we have, the better.
The race to vaccinate Tennesseans is well underway with more positive news.
The only way to get through this epidemic and the pandemic is to get people vaccinated.
Johnson & Johnson clearing FDA authorization was the latest hurdle to get in front of the pandemic.
This vaccine in particular, it's a little bit easier to handle. You can transport it easier. It lasts longer in a refrigerator. It's a single dose.
From Memphis to Knoxville, mismanagement led to thousands of expired and unusable doses. Dr. Hall says there's nothing worse in the middle of a pandemic.
Every dose that we have to throw out represents one person that could have been vaccinated.
Rutherford County schools announced 1,000 COVID-19 doses had to be thrown away due to the vaccine storage mistakes.
It's a setback that is going to prolong the pandemic, even if momentarily. So wasted vaccine is a horrible situation to find ourselves in.
But Dr. Hall says it is expected due to the nature of the pandemic.
It is somewhat inevitable, especially with the first round of vaccines being so finicky in terms of how they have to be stored, the time frame in which they're reconstituted and then administered. Logistically, it's hard to do, and I understand the difficulties.
He adds there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but vaccination and continuing safe COVID protocols are the surest ways to lay the pandemic to rest.
We still have cases every day in Tennessee and in Nashville. We still have people that are unfortunately dying from COVID-19. However, we're in a better place now.
Reporting in Nashville, Gerald Harris, News 2.
Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. Welcome back to This Week. More vaccine is headed to Tennessee, including the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Tennessee can choose which vaccine they would like to receive. Dr. Lisa Piercy, Commissioner of the State Department of Health, outlined this week's COVID news.
The good news is that the J&J product is safe, it's effective. There's a lot of talk about the perception of this being a reduced efficacy vaccine. That's not the case at all. It is 100% effective against severe disease and hospitalization and death. That is exactly what we're looking for in a vaccine. I'm oftentimes asked if I would take that vaccine or if I would give it to members of my family, and the answer unequivocally is yes. And so you've heard me say before, the best vaccine is the one you can get the soonest. And so if you are offered the J&J vaccine and you want to take that one, I encourage you to do so. I also want to remind you that with the J&J product, we now have 3 vaccines, or will soon have 3 vaccines in state. I want to assure you that Tennesseans will have a choice. On the website called vaccinefinder.org, that shows where all of the sites across the state are that have vaccine in them. It also denotes which product is in each of those sites. Now, speaking of vaccine storage and handling, that's something that is another really big benefit of the Johnson & Johnson product. You just put it in the refrigerator. It's very easy to handle. It doesn't have nearly the stringent storage and handling requirements that the Pfizer and Moderna products do. So it's going to be very well suited to get out to providers that don't have quite as much experience in handling vaccines. And it's also going to be a very good vaccine to vaccinate populations who are unlikely to come back for a second dose. Think about urgent care centers or emergency rooms or college campuses or anywhere where it might be difficult to get them to come back. Also, it's really well suited for large mass vaccination sites. It's a one and done, very quick and easy to transport out into the field. So I think you will see that in several different locations. And then the other thing that we're working on that is scheduled to come online around mid-March, we've been working in a partnership with TBR, the Tennessee Board of Regents, which is essentially the governing body for higher education and community colleges, working with those sites to set up large drive-through mass vaccination sites on these campuses, not just for the people on the campus, but for the community. They oftentimes have a lot of parking lot and ways to drive through and put through a large number of cars. And so you'll see those sites being announced here in the next couple of weeks. But we've got several of those scheduled to come online soon. So the week of March 22nd, the week of March 29th, we've been signaled that there might be a lot of back-end loading for the month of March, and it could be as much as 30 or 40% increase in Pfizer and Moderna with the new Johnson & Johnson layered on top of that. So by the end of the month, it is plausible that we could be getting 300,000 plus vaccines per week. That thrills me to say, because that's quite the opposite of what I was telling you just 30 days ago, where we were struggling to get maybe even 80,000 a week in the state. And I'm speaking specifically right now about the 89 rural health departments, we have over 200,000 available appointments open in the system right now. Now, they're not all this week or next week, but it goes all the way out to May. And so if people are worried about, well, I'm not going to be able to get an appointment, so I'm not even going to go on that site, I would encourage you to take a look. You might have to drive a little bit longer than you would normally have to, but there are 228,000 available appointments on that website. But also, the other thing we're announcing today is that effective Monday, March 8th, we're moving to our 1C population statewide. This is a massive population, and the reason we're going to go ahead and speed up and go to that phase is in anticipation for this large surplus of vaccine that we expect in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So as a reminder, the 1C population is all people age 16 plus with a high-risk medical condition. There's a long list of those conditions. It's in the vaccine plan, and it's on the website that Shelley just put the website in the chat box. But things like obesity and hypertension, COPD, diabetics requiring medication, there are a lot of people that will qualify in 1C of all ages. Now, from an age-based standpoint, we will continue to hold it at 65 plus on the age base, but beginning Monday, anybody with those medical conditions will be eligible to book an appointment.
Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. On the COVID front, happening now, a rollout of a new vaccine. Johnson & Johnson has been preparing shipments of its single injection vaccine. Andrew Dimbert is on COVID-19 Watch with the latest.
After the U.S. passed the grim milestone of more than 500,000 American lives lost, there's a fresh wind of optimism ahead with a third vaccine now in the fight. Pharmaceutical giant Johnson & Johnson rolling out just under 4 million doses of its newly approved one-shot vaccine this morning. Within 48 hours, the company says Americans should start getting those doses.
The trucks are literally rolling off the docks as we speak.
Johnson & Johnson's vaccine joining Pfizer and Moderna's two-shot version, leading health experts urging all eligible Americans to get whichever one they can.
All three vaccines are safe and highly effective at preventing what we care about most, and that's very serious illness and death.
While a third vaccine is encouraging in turning the tide, the head of the CDC issuing this warning after the recent decline in new COVID-19 infections has leveled off.
Please hear me clearly. At this level of cases with variants spreading, we stand to completely lose the hard-earned ground we have gained.
And from the health emergency to the financial crisis created by the pandemic, President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion aid package now lies in the Senate after narrowly passing in the House. And it's everyday Americans trying to stay financially afloat who are watching and waiting for Congress to act fast.
Also on the COVID front, President Biden with a stunning announcement speeding up the timeline to get every American vaccinated.
We're now on track to have enough vaccine supply for every adult in America by the end of May. Let me say that again. When we came into office, the prior administration had contracted for not nearly enough vaccine to cover adults in America. We rectified that. And I'm pleased to announce today, as a consequence of the stepped-up process that I've ordered and just outlined, this country will have enough vaccine supply, I'll say it again, for every adult in America by the end of May. By the end of May. That's progress, important progress. But it's not enough to have the vaccine supply. We need vaccinators, people to put the shots in people's arms, millions of Americans' arms.
The president is also stressing the importance of getting teachers, all teachers, vaccinated.
But our goal is to do everything we can to help every educator receive a shot this month, the month of March. I want to conclude with this. We're making progress from the mess we inherited. We're moving in the right direction. And today's announcements are a huge step in our effort to beat this pandemic.
The president warned against complacency and not social distancing or not wearing masks.
This fight is far from over. I told you I'd be straight up with you from the beginning. As I said many times, things may get worse again as new variants spread and as we face setbacks like recent winter storms in the Midwest and South.
The president urged Americans to be strong and for Congress to act now.
We need the American Rescue Plan now. Now. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but we cannot let our guard down now or assure that victory is inevitable. We can't assume that. We must remain vigilant, act fast and aggressively, and look out for one another. That's how we're going to get ahead of this virus, get our economy going again, and get back to our loved ones.
Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment. I want to thank you for spending part of your weekend with us. That will do it for another edition of This Week. We hope to see you back here next weekend for another edition of This Week, and you have a great week.